I'm about to reveal something that might shock you. Waking up at 3 a.m. every night isn't just insomnia or part of getting older. It's your body screaming that something is seriously wrong, and the medical establishment keeps prescribing sleeping pills without asking why. I'm Dr. Robert Anderson, and after 2 decades in geriatric medicine, I've watched hundreds of seniors suffer through years of broken sleep, being told it's just aging, being handed prescription after prescription, all because nobody investigated the real reasons why their bodies were waking them up at precisely the same time every single night. What I'm about to share goes against everything you've been told about sleep and aging. Your doctor likely prescribed you Ambien or Trazodone without running a single blood test. They never asked about your evening routine. They never checked your magnesium levels or your cortisol patterns or whether your bladder was actually full at 3 a.m. This isn't fear-mongering. These are real patients I've treated, real seniors who spent years exhausted, falling asleep in their chairs every afternoon, snapping at their spouses, forgetting conversations, all because 5 specific fixable problems were hijacking their sleep cycles every single night. And here's what makes me angry. Every single one of these 5 reasons has a biological solution, not a sleeping pill that leaves you groggy and confused the next morning. Not meditation apps or sleep hygiene lectures. Actual biological fixes that address why your body is waking you. I refuse to stay silent while millions of seniors accept broken sleep as normal. It's not normal. Your body is trying to tell you something. And today, I'm going to decode exactly what that message is. Before we dive in, I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel right now. Drop a comment below with your age and which country you're watching from. I want to know how many of us are waking up at 3 a.m. and how far this message travels. Every comment helps YouTube share this with more people who are suffering in silence. Now let me walk you through the 5 hidden causes, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll understand your body in a way your doctor never explained. Why this matters after 60. Here's what most doctors won't tell you. After age 60, your sleep architecture fundamentally changes. Your body produces less melatonin, your circadian rhythm weakens, your bladder capacity decreases, your cortisol patterns shift. But here's the critical part. These changes don't automatically mean broken sleep. They mean your body has less margin for error. A 30-year-old can have low magnesium and sleep through the night. A 70-year-old with low magnesium wakes up at 3 a.m. like clockwork. A middle-aged person can drink water all evening and sleep fine. A senior does the same thing and their bladder wakes them up 3 times. Research from Johns Hopkins University found that nearly 60% of adults over 65 report difficulty maintaining sleep. But the study revealed something more important. When underlying causes were identified and corrected, 73% of those seniors returned to consolidated sleep within 6 weeks. That's not sleeping pills. That's biological correction. Your doctor prescribes pills because that's what they were taught. They weren't taught to look for magnesium deficiency or cortisol spikes or bladder irritation from evening fluids. They were taught. Patient over 65 reports insomnia. Prescribed sedative. Move to next patient. But you deserve better. You deserve to understand why your body is waking you and what you can do about it. The 5 reasons I'm about to share explain the vast majority of 3 a.m. awakenings in seniors. Some of you will recognize all 5, some will identify one primary cause, but understanding these will give you more power over your sleep than any prescription ever could. Let me be clear before we continue. This isn't about demonizing your doctor or dismissing medical care. If you're currently taking sleep medication prescribed by your physician, do not stop without their guidance. What I'm showing you today are the underlying biological reasons your body wakes up. These are fixes that work alongside proper medical care, not replacements for it. These are real patients I've treated, real interventions that produced real results. And I'm sharing this because too many seniors are told their broken sleep is just part of aging when it absolutely doesn't have to be. Now, let's talk about the first hidden cause. Hidden cause. Number 1, magnesium deficiency, the most common and most overlooked. Let me tell you about Dorothy, 72. She had been waking up at 3 a.m. almost every night for 4 years. Her doctor had prescribed Ambien. It made her feel foggy the next day, but didn't stop the 3 a.m. awakening. She tried melatonin, helped her fall asleep initially, but wore off by 3 a.m. She was told it was just aging, just something she'd have to accept. "Dr. Anderson," she said, her voice tight with exhaustion, "I fall asleep fine at 10 p.m., but at 3 a.m., I'm wide awake. My mind starts racing, my legs feel restless, and I lie there for 2 hours before I can fall back asleep." She showed me her sleep diary, meticulous notes, every night for 6 weeks, almost every entry. Awake 2:50, 3, 10 a.m. We went through her routine. She was doing everything right. Dark room, cool temperature, no caffeine after noon, regular exercise. Then I asked what seemed like an almost trivial question. "Dorothy, do you take any magnesium?" She paused, confused. "No, should I?" There was the problem. Here's what was happening inside Dorothy's body every single night. Magnesium is the master mineral for sleep. It regulates your parasympathetic nervous system, the part that calms you down and keeps you asleep. It controls GABA receptors in your brain, the same receptors that sleeping pills target. But here's the critical mechanism. Magnesium levels naturally drop during sleep as your body uses it for hundreds of nighttime repair processes. In a younger person with good magnesium stores, this drop doesn't matter. But in a senior with borderline low magnesium, that natural nighttime decline pushes them below the threshold needed to maintain sleep. That threshold is typically reached around 3 to 4 a.m., which is why seniors wake up at almost exactly the same time every night. Research published in the Journal of Research and Medical Sciences found that magnesium supplementation improved sleep quality scores by 41% in elderly participants and reduced nighttime awakenings by an average of 63%. The study showed that magnesium specifically helped maintain sleep in the second half of the night, the exact window when seniors typically wake up. Why does this work? When you supplement magnesium before bed, you start the night with higher reserves. As your body depletes magnesium during sleep, you never drop below the critical threshold. Your parasympathetic nervous system stays engaged. Your GABA receptors remain calm. You sleep through until morning. But there's something critical about which form of magnesium you take. Most seniors are taking magnesium oxide because it's cheap and widely available. Magnesium oxide has roughly 4% absorption. You're essentially wasting your money and getting almost no benefit. The forms that actually work for sleep are magnesium glycinate or magnesium threonate. Both cross into your brain effectively. Both have absorption rates above 40%. I had Dorothy start taking 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate 1 hour before bed. The first night, she woke up at 3 a.m. but fell back asleep within 20 minutes instead of lying awake for 2 hours. The second night, she woke up at 4:30 a.m. By the end of the first week, Dorothy slept through until 6 a.m., 5 nights out of 7. 4 years of broken sleep improved in 1 week by correcting a simple mineral deficiency. "I honestly thought you were a little crazy when you said magnesium," she admitted with a genuine smile. "I mean, I've been taking sleeping pills. I've tried everything, and you're telling me it's a vitamin? But I can't argue with my sleep tracker. The numbers don't lie." That's not magic. It's biochemistry working again. Why do doctors miss this? Because they're not taught to think about micronutrients. They're taught pharmacology. When a patient presents with insomnia, the protocol is prescribe sedative. They don't check magnesium levels. They don't ask about diet. They don't consider that decades of eating processed foods and taking medications that deplete magnesium might have left your body running on empty. But now you know. And if you're waking up at 3 a.m. with a racing mind and restless legs, magnesium deficiency might be the first thing to address. Hidden cause. Burr 2. Blood sugar crash. The silent awakening trigger. We arrive at the second reason seniors wake up at 3 a.m., and this one will surprise many of you because it has nothing to do with your sleep directly. Let me tell you about Gerald, 68. Gerald had been waking up every night between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m. for almost 3 years. His doctor ran a sleep study. No apnea, no restless leg syndrome. He was told it was probably anxiety and prescribed lorazepam. Gerald tried the lorazepam. It helped him fall back asleep faster, but didn't stop the awakening, and he hated how it made him feel the next morning. "Dr. Anderson," he said, clearly frustrated, "I don't feel anxious. I feel fine when I go to bed. But my eyes just pop open at 3 a.m. My heart is beating a little faster, and then I'm awake." We methodically went through his evening routine. He wasn't drinking water excessively. His last meal was at 6 p.m. He went to bed at 10:30 p.m. Then I asked a question that seemed unrelated to sleep. "Gerald, what do you typically eat for dinner?" He looked confused but answered, "Usually chicken or fish, a salad, maybe some rice or a roll." "And after dinner, any snacks?" "No," he said. "I don't eat after dinner. I read that eating late disrupts sleep." There it was. Here's what was happening to Gerald every single night. Gerald was eating dinner at 6 p.m., going to bed at 10:30 p.m. By the time he woke up at 3 a.m., it had been 9 hours since he last ate. In a younger person, this might not matter, but Gerald was 68. His metabolism had slowed, his glycogen storage capacity had decreased, his cortisol regulation wasn't as robust as it used to be. What happens during sleep is this: your body continues burning glucose for energy even while you're resting. Your brain alone uses roughly 20% of your total glucose supply. After several hours without food, your blood sugar begins to drop. In most people, your liver releases stored glucose to maintain blood sugar. But after age 60, liver glycogen stores are often depleted faster, especially if you ate a lighter dinner or if several hours passed between dinner and sleep. When your blood sugar drops too low, your body perceives it as an emergency. It releases cortisol and adrenaline to trigger glucose release and wake you up so you can eat. That's why Gerald's heart was beating faster when he woke up. That's why his eyes just popped open. His body was in mild fight or flight mode, trying to correct low blood sugar. A study published in the journal Sleep Medicine found that nocturnal hypoglycemia, even mild episodes that wouldn't wake a younger person, caused awakenings in 68% of adults over 65. The study demonstrated that a small bedtime snack containing protein and complex carbohydrates reduced nighttime awakenings by 54% within 2 weeks. Why does this work? Protein and fat slow digestion and provide a steady release of glucose throughout the night. This keeps your blood sugar stable. Your body doesn't panic. Cortisol and adrenaline stay low. You sleep through until morning. I had Gerald make one simple change. 30 minutes before bed, eat a small snack containing protein and a small amount of complex carbohydrate. Gerald chose a tablespoon of almond butter on a few whole grain crackers, about 150 calories, nothing heavy, just enough to provide fuel for the night ahead. The first night, Gerald woke up at 3 a.m. but fell back asleep almost immediately. The second night, he woke up at 4:45 a.m. Within 2 weeks, Gerald was sleeping through until 6 a.m. most nights. 3 years of broken sleep, fixed by a tablespoon of almond butter. "I can't believe it was that simple," Gerald told me. "I thought eating before bed was bad for sleep, but it's the opposite." Exactly. Why does this happen more in seniors? Because your metabolic flexibility decreases with age. Your liver stores less glycogen, your insulin sensitivity changes, your cortisol rhythm becomes more reactive. All of this makes you more vulnerable to blood sugar fluctuations that wouldn't have affected you at age 40. If you're waking up between 2 and 4 a.m. with your heart racing slightly, with a feeling of alertness rather than grogginess, blood sugar crash is likely involved. Try the bedtime snack, protein plus a small amount of complex carb. Not sugar, not a big meal, just enough to keep your blood sugar steady through the night. Before we continue, I want to make a quick request. If what you've heard so far seems valuable, I'm asking for 2 simple things. First, subscribe to this channel. My mission is to provide clear, straight-shooting health information about issues that affect seniors every single day. Second, and perhaps more important, share this video. Think about your parents, your grandparents, your friends who wake up every night exhausted. A simple click can start a conversation that could genuinely give them their sleep back. Thank you for your support. Let's continue with the third hidden cause. Hidden cause, number 3. Bladder irritation from evening fluid timing, the misunderstood problem. And this one will absolutely surprise you because most seniors think they're doing the right thing. Let me tell you about Elizabeth, 74. Elizabeth had been waking up to urinate at 3 a.m. every single night for years. Her doctor told her it was an aging bladder, completely normal. She was prescribed oxybutynin to reduce bladder urgency. The medication helped slightly but made her mouth unbearably dry and left her constipated. She tried limiting fluids after 6 p.m., helped a little, but she still woke up. "Dr. Anderson," she said, exhausted, "I wake up and my bladder feels full. But when I go to the bathroom, it's barely anything, maybe a few ounces, but I can't fall back asleep until I go." She showed me her fluid intake journal. Her doctor had told her to track it. Morning, 16 ounces of water. Lunch, 12 ounces. Afternoon, 20 ounces because she'd read that seniors need to stay hydrated. After 6 p.m., nothing except small sips. I looked at her journal and immediately saw the problem. Elizabeth, I said, you're drinking 48 ounces of water in a 6-hour window during the afternoon. Your kidneys can't process that fast enough. It's still circulating in your system at bedtime. She looked shocked, but I stopped drinking after 6 p.m. like everyone says to do. Here's what was really happening. Your kidneys process fluids over several hours, not immediately. When you drink a large volume of water in the afternoon, especially in a short window, your kidneys continue processing that fluid well into the evening. For a younger person with robust kidney function, this might not matter. But after age 60, your glomerular filtration rate, the speed at which your kidneys filter blood, naturally declines. This means fluids you drink at 4 p.m. might still be processed at 10 p.m. By the time you've been asleep for 4 or 5 hours, enough urine has accumulated to trigger bladder stretch receptors. Those receptors send signals to your brain. You wake up. But here's the twist. Elizabeth's bladder wasn't actually full. She was only voiding a few ounces. What was happening is bladder irritation, not true fullness. When you drink large volumes of plain water in concentrated periods, the sudden dilution of urine can irritate the bladder lining, making it more sensitive. This is especially true in postmenopausal women whose bladder linings are thinner due to decreased estrogen. Research from the Journal of Urology found that redistributing fluid intake evenly throughout the day, rather than concentrating it in the afternoon, reduced nighttime urinary frequency by 47% in adults over 65. The study emphasized that total volume mattered less than timing and distribution. I had Elizabeth make 2 changes. First, redistribute fluids evenly throughout the entire day. Instead of drinking 20 ounces in the afternoon, spread it out. 8 ounces mid-morning, 8 ounces at lunch, 6 ounces mid-afternoon. Stop all fluids 3 hours before bed, not 2. Second, add a small pinch of sea salt to her morning water. This sounds counterintuitive, but here's why it works. Plain water can be irritating to the bladder because it's hypotonic, meaning it has a lower concentration of minerals than your body fluids. Adding trace minerals makes water isotonic, which is gentler on the bladder lining and absorbed more efficiently without triggering excessive urination. The first night, Elizabeth still woke up once, but at 4:30 a.m. instead of 3 a.m. The second night, 5:15 a.m. Within 10 days, Elizabeth was sleeping through until 6 a.m., 4 nights out of 7. I can't believe it was the timing, she told me. I thought I was doing everything right by drinking water in the afternoon and stopping early, but I was actually making it worse. Exactly. Why doctors miss this? Because they focus on bladder capacity and medications to reduce urgency. They don't ask about fluid distribution throughout the day. They don't consider that the concentration and timing of fluids matter just as much as total volume. If you're waking up to urinate but only voiding small amounts, the issue might not be your bladder capacity. It might be irritation from fluid timing. Try the redistribution. Spread fluids evenly. Stop 3 hours before bed. Add trace minerals to morning water. Give it 1 week and track what happens. Hidden cause. Number 4. Cortisol spike from unmanaged stress. The 3 a.m. anxiety attack. We arrive at the 4th reason, and this one is both biological and psychological, but it's far more biological than most doctors acknowledge. Let me tell you about Robert, 69. Robert had been waking up at 3 a.m. for 6 months. When he woke up, his mind immediately started racing. Worries about his health, finances, his grandchildren, things he had to do the next day. His doctor diagnosed anxiety and prescribed sertraline, an SSRI antidepressant. Robert tried it for 3 months. It didn't stop the 3 a.m. awakening. He was told to try cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. "Dr. Anderson," he said, clearly defeated, "I don't feel anxious during the day. I'm retired. My life is good, but at 3 a.m., everything feels overwhelming." We talked about his daily routine, his stress levels, his exercise, his relationships. Nothing seemed obviously wrong. Then I asked him about his evening routine in detail. "What do you do before bed?" "I watch the news for an hour," he said. "Then I read for a bit and go to sleep around 10:30 p.m. "What kind of news?" "Cable news, political stuff. It's frustrating, but I like to stay informed." There it was. Here's what was happening to Robert every single night. Robert was watching emotionally charged, stressful news content from 9 to 10 p.m. right before bed. This was triggering cortisol release. Cortisol is your stress hormone. It follows a natural rhythm. It should be highest in the morning to wake you up and lowest at night to help you sleep. But when you expose yourself to stressful stimuli in the evening, watching news about politics, crime, conflict, your brain perceives it as threat. It doesn't distinguish between real danger and observed danger. It releases cortisol. Cortisol takes several hours to metabolize. If you spike cortisol at 9:30 p.m., it's still elevated at 10:30 when you go to bed. You might fall asleep initially because you're tired, but 4 to 5 hours later, as cortisol naturally dips, the sudden drop can trigger a rebound awakening. This is the same mechanism that causes early morning awakening in clinical depression, but Robert wasn't depressed. He was experiencing artificially elevated evening cortisol from media consumption. A study published in Psychoneuroendocrinology found that exposure to stressful media content within 2 hours of bedtime increased nighttime cortisol variability and caused awakenings in the 3 hours to 4 hours a.m. window in 61% of participants over age 60. When participants stopped consuming stressful content in the evening, nighttime awakenings decreased by 58% within 3 weeks. Why does this happen more in seniors? Because your cortisol regulation becomes less resilient with age. A 30-year-old can watch stressful news and their cortisol recovers quickly. A 70-year-old watches the same content and their cortisol stays elevated for hours. I had Robert make one change. Stop all news consumption after 7 p.m. Replace it with calming activities, reading fiction, listening to music, gentle stretching, anything that doesn't trigger stress or emotional arousal. Robert resisted at first, but I need to stay informed. You can stay informed, I told him. Just do it in the morning when your cortisol is naturally high anyway. Don't do it at night when your body is trying to wind down. Robert agreed to try it for 2 weeks. The first 3 nights, he still woke up at 3 a.m., old patterns, but by night 4, he slept through until 4:30 a.m. By the end of 2 weeks, Robert was sleeping through until 6 a.m., 5 nights out of 7. I didn't realize how much the news was affecting me, Robert told me. I thought I was just watching it casually, but my body was taking it in as real stress. Exactly. Why doctors miss this? Because they treat the symptom, anxiety, with medication. They don't investigate what's causing the cortisol dysregulation in the first place. They don't ask about evening routines or media consumption. They prescribe pills and move on. But you can't medicate your way out of self-imposed stress. If you're waking up at 3 a.m. with your mind racing, with anxious thoughts that feel disproportionate to your actual life circumstances, evening cortisol spikes are likely involved. Cut out stressful media after 7 p.m. Replace it with genuinely calming activities. Give your cortisol system a chance to regulate naturally. Track your awakenings for 2 weeks and see what happens. Hidden cause. Number 5. Vitamin B12 deficiency, the neurological sleep disruptor. We arrive at the 5th reason, and this one is so commonly overlooked it borders on medical negligence. Let me tell you about Margaret, 71. Margaret had been waking up at 3 a.m. almost every night for over a year. She also had other symptoms: tingling in her feet, occasional brain fog, fatigue that didn't improve with rest. Her doctor ran blood work. Everything looked normal, including her B12 level, which was 210 pg/ml. Your B12 is within normal range, her doctor said. Your sleep issues are probably just aging. Margaret was prescribed Zolpidem. It helped her fall asleep, but didn't prevent the 3 a.m. awakening. When Margaret came to see me, I immediately looked at her B12 level, 210 pg/ml, technically within the normal laboratory range of 200-900, but functionally deficient. Margaret, I said, your B12 is too low. She looked confused, but my doctor said it was normal. Here's what most doctors don't understand. The laboratory reference range for B12 is based on statistical averages, not functional optimums. A level of 210 might prevent pernicious anemia, but it's nowhere near enough for optimal neurological function, especially in seniors. Research from Harvard Medical School found that B12 levels below 400 pg/ml in adults over 65 are associated with cognitive decline, peripheral neuropathy and disrupted sleep architecture. The study emphasized that normal on a lab report doesn't mean optimal for brain and nerve health. Here's what was happening inside Margaret's body. Vitamin B12 is essential for myelin production, the insulation around your nerves. It's also critical for neurotransmitter synthesis, including serotonin and melatonin. When B12 is too low, your nerves become hyperexcitable. They fire inappropriately. This causes tingling, but it also disrupts sleep because your nervous system can't fully relax. Additionally, low B12 impairs melatonin production. Even if you fall asleep initially, melatonin levels drop too quickly overnight. By 3 a.m., you don't have enough melatonin to maintain deep sleep. You wake up. After age 50, B12 absorption naturally declines because stomach acid production decreases. You need stomach acid to cleave B12 from food proteins. Without adequate acid, you become functionally deficient even if you're eating B12-rich foods. This is compounded if you're taking acid-blocking medications like omeprazole or famotidine, which further reduce B12 absorption. I had Margaret start taking 1,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin, the active form of B12, sublingually every morning. Sublingual bypasses the stomach absorption problem. The first week, Margaret noticed her brain fog improving slightly. By week 2, the tingling in her feet was less frequent. By week 3, she was sleeping through until 5 a.m. most nights. By week 6, Margaret was sleeping through until 6:30 a.m. consistently. "I can't believe a vitamin fixed this," she said. "I spent a year on sleeping pills. Nobody checked if my B12 was actually high enough. That's the problem, nobody checks." Why do doctors miss this? Because they trust the lab reference range without understanding that optimal and normal are not the same thing. They don't consider that B12 deficiency is epidemic in seniors. They don't ask about acid-blocking medications or absorption issues. Studies estimate that up to 40% of adults over 60 have B12 levels below 400, yet most are told their levels are fine because they're above 200. If you're waking up at 3 a.m. and you also have tingling, numbness, brain fog, or unexplained fatigue, get your B12 checked. If it's below 400, supplement with methylcobalamin. Give it 6 weeks and track your sleep. Here's something critical before you go. If you have an overactive bladder from neurological disease, fluid timing will help but might not eliminate awakenings entirely. If you have clinical depression, evening routine changes will support treatment but won't replace proper mental health care. But you now have 5 specific fixes. Implement them. Track your results. Watch yourself start reclaiming your nights. I'm Dr. Robert Anderson. Fix the causes, reclaim your sleep, restore your energy. I'll see you in the next video.